So let's talk through these positions. And obviously, I did a lot of edge rushers, and I see quite a bit of talent available throughout the draft for the Bills. My true, pure first round grades are going to be Reuben Bain, David Bailey, and Malachi Lawrence. I don't see Bain or Bailey making it to 26, but Lawrence, I think, has a chance. And then also like Keldrick Falk and Akeem Messidor as back half of round one grades, kind of that late first, early second round bucket. But there's a bunch of guys round two, a bunch of guys round three. There's players on day three that I like as well. And so while I definitely feel like edge rusher is something the Bills should address and maybe even early, I think the depth of this class lends itself well to there being appealing options throughout. So I could see edge rusher being in play really at multiple spots in this draft for the Bills. Now, when it comes to interior defensive line, I think things are thinned out a bit more. And that's why, while I don't think Christian Miller or Caden McDonald are perfect first-round picks for the Bills, I will say that they do stand out to me in this group. And I like some of the third or fourth round options, but I think there's going to be a bit of a drop-off. More of specific type players that have specialized skill sets, where I think Miller and McDonald have a chance to be more every down impact type guys. And so I think the talent cliff is a little bit more significant at interior defensive line, and the Bills could be in position to get their choice of Christian Miller or Caden McDonald at 26, keeping in mind Miller was a player they had in for a pre-draft visit. Linebacker, inside linebacker, I think Sonny Styles is the best player in this draft. He's the number one player on my board, and I think he's special. He won't be available for the Bills, nor will Arvell Reese. But there are players that they could target back half of round one. I love Anthony Hill from Texas. I like Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. CJ Allen out of Georgia, I think would fill a major need. I'm a big fan of, like, at pick 91, Josiah Trotter out of Missouri, Jake Golday out of Cincinnati. And I'll be honest, there's some early day three grades that if the Bills took them earlier, I wouldn't be mad. I love Jimmy Rolder out of Michigan. I really like Caleb Elarms-Orr out of TCU as this, like, hybrid front seven type weapon. And so I think the Bills have a pretty big need at inside linebacker. And I think this is a pretty good class where there will be options throughout the first four rounds that could fill a big need for the Bills. But my sleeper there is Jimmy Rolder. The Bills had him for a pre-draft visit. If they picked him in the fourth round, I'd be really, really excited. Then when it comes to corner, the Bills had pre-draft visits with Julian Neal and Malik Muhammad, who we talked about on yesterday's episode. I think they'd have to take them maybe in the third round. If they get to the fourth round, I'd be a little bit surprised, but finding some corner depth is really important. And then safety, the Bills only did work on one safety that we know of in terms of a visit or a workout, and that's AJ Halsey out of LSU, who's an absolute hammer, 215 pounds, and he is one of the more physical players, regardless of position, in this class. And he's got some pretty good zone skills. I don't know that you can trust him in man coverage, but I think the zone coverage and that physicality, tone setting type presence would be awesome. But where do you take him? Are you going to pick that at 91? I don't know. At 26 feels very early. I don't love the idea of a safety early, but you could be in a kind of a weird position in terms of when the right time is to draft an AJ Halsey if you feel like you have to have him. But I know one of the big talking points that I've had and still do is that I'd love for the Bills to trade back. And when I think about defensive players, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that there's anyone that would have to be on the board that I wouldn't trade away from. Now, obviously, like Sonny Styles is an extreme example. He's not getting outside of the top 5 to 10 picks, but I wouldn't trade away from him or Arvell Reese or Reuben Bain. But to be completely honest with you, I would trade away from anyone else. Malachi Lawrence, I love Malachi Lawrence. I'd trade away from him. Christian Miller, Caden McDonald, I'd be more than satisfied with them at 26. But if the Bills traded away from them, I wouldn't find myself overly concerned. I think this defensive board sets up well for the Bills, who unfortunately still have a lot of defensive needs especially with the front seven. But I think it does stack up well for the Bills to find some answers. All right, coming up next, I'm going to break down the offensive side of the football. And then, of course, later on, that dad-daughter draft duel. That's all coming up next, folks. Be sure to stick with me. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication, missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with more than 30,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. The part I love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, and voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks, and the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. You know that feeling around dinner time when you're starving, maybe a little hangry, and somehow there's nothing in the fridge. That's why Home Chef is the easiest way to have real balanced meals ready to go without the stress. Home Chef makes cooking simple. You get fresh ingredients delivered right to your door, easy to follow recipes and meals that actually taste great. No long shopping lists, no complicated prep, and the best of all, easy cleanup. There's over 30 meals to choose from each week, so you're never stuck eating the same thing over and over. I've also noticed I'm spending way less time planning meals and running to the store, which is a big time saver. And it honestly, the meals are awesome. They feel like they're restaurant quality. It's like having a personal chef without the cost. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off and free shipping on your first box plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/LockedOnNFL. That's homechef.com/LockedOnNFL for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/LockedOnNFL. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. All right, let's dive into this offensive board. And keep in mind, go to today's show notes. You'll see a link that'll take you right to this, and you can then reference it however you want. You can look at it and have it as a resource for you on draft day. But offensively, things are a little bit more thin here because, well, I don't see as many offensive needs for the Bills. So I did a bunch of work on receivers and then pretty much just filled in the rest with players that the Bills had in for pre-draft visits or workouts. I did a few interior offensive linemen that are towards the top because, you know, before the Bills brought back Connor McGovern and signed Austin Corbett, the need at interior offensive line was pretty significant. So I did do some work on them. But ultimately, when it comes to the offensive side of the football, it's about wide receiver and then maybe some offensive tackle depth. So let's talk about it. At quarterback, I put Jalen Daniels on there out of Kansas. The Bills did a private workout with him. I'm not sure he's worth a draft pick, maybe a 7th rounder. Just really underdeveloped. And he started over 40 games, and you just expect a lot more polish in terms of decision-making and accuracy when it comes to somebody with that many starts. And decision-making and accuracy are the two most important traits for quarterbacks, and I think Jalen Daniels is poor in both areas. So not sure the Bills will really go that route. I'm going to skip over receiver for just a second. At tight end, we talked about Justin Joly out of NC State. Yesterday, the Bills had him in for a private workout. A move piece joker type tight end. There's some speculation that maybe the Bills had Joly in to gain some intel on Casey Concepcion, who was his teammate at NC State, but I'd be surprised if the Bills drafted any tight ends. At offensive tackle, the only name you'll see here is Austin Barber. The Bills hosted him.